much truck lift do you actually need? In this video, we're gonna break down what things you need to consider when building your truck.
And at the end, we'll give you recommendations for what's just right.
First thing to consider, there are a ton of options when building your vehicle. In this case, size matters. So if you know what size, got him off guard on that one. First, you need to determine what size wheel and tire package you want to put underneath of your suspension kit. Whether you want to keep it small in a 20x9 or kind of keep the same factory sizing, or if you want to go up to a 33, want to go up to a 35, or want to go up to a 37-inch tire, you have to know those things. That way it's easier for us to be like, you want 35s? We know what size suspension kit you need in order to fit that wheel and tire package underneath of it.
What she said. So when it comes down to the size of the lift and the wheels and tires on your vehicle, that's insanely important. There are a lot of different aspects to why you cannot put a 35-inch wheel on a Honda Ridgeline. Okay?
You can't? But you can trim, right?
I mean, yes, she's right, all right? Just get her out of the frame. So when it comes down to a Honda Ridgeline, what you would have to do in order to get that done is put a lift kit on it or do immense amount of trimming. Yeah. When it comes down to it, you can do all different types of sizes for tires, wheels, and lift kits. Just know your boundaries on what you can fit in a certain vehicle and the consequences to not doing it properly. There is rubbing, there could be driving issues. It's a whole mess of things that could happen if you don't do it properly. So consult somebody like myself or Marissa.
Like Pete said, you have to know the sizing, how offset works when you go with your wider wheels and tires in order for you to know what suspension brand has to go on top of it. So like Pete said, if you have a 35-inch tire, you cannot put that on a stock unit unless you are doing an immense amount of metal trimming, especially on a lot of guys like to run 35s on their classic Chevys. In order to run a 35 on a classic Chevy, just because of the square fender wells, you have to lift them actually almost 6-7 inches in order for them to clear properly, unless you want to hack the truck up.
Yeah.
So rule number one, know what size wheel and tire package you want to go with. That makes it easier for me and Pete and Kyle and Nick, everybody on our team.
So when it comes down to your budget, that's another important factor that you need to know and recognize when it comes down to leveling or lifting your vehicle. When you do it properly, it's not gonna be a cheap thing.
So I can get a full bill for like $2 grand?
I said it's not gonna be a cheap thing.
Okay.
When it comes down to a full build, obviously tires, lifts, and any of the material, that's gonna be MSRP. Unless you go to a dealer that is janky, they're not gonna charge up for that. They're just gonna charge MSRP on it. So that doesn't change. We can't really move around on any of this stuff. And so when it comes down to it, doing this stuff, a level kit is going to be your most affordable option. The parts typically are around $99 to, I mean, you can do a Cognito for honestly $6,000, but $99 to $1,000 range is what you're looking to spend on a leveling kit. And that's where you can add a 33-inch tire or a 20-inch wheel, depending on the vehicle, obviously. But that leveling kit is going to be much cheaper than a full build, which can cost upwards of $8,000.
Yeah. Biggest thing whenever we're talking to customers, your number one thing in our mind is what our customers' budgets are. Yeah. What is your budget? How much money do you have to spend on the build? Because if you only have a budget of say $5,000, then we're gonna go push you towards more so a leveling kit, 20x9s and 33s. Now, if you have come to us and you're like, hey, I can have a build anywhere from like 1,000 or 8,500, now you're getting into the bigger suspensions and your bigger wheels and tires that we can get you into your budget. So knowing your budget is extremely helpful to us whenever we're quoting things, because we can go right off the rip and get you the most expensive thing. And then you're gonna come back and me be like, oh, I can't afford that, which is why we ask what your budget is. So that way we know and we're on the same page as you, where we're not quoting a bunch of upgrades to the vehicle where you're like, dude, I just want a leveling kit. And then we'll be on the same page there.
Because I will quote you 30 grand, all right? I will, right off the bat. You don't know, it's gonna be 30 grand.
So that's why our number one question is always gonna be, what's your budget? How much are you looking at spending on this build? And then that way we can get you what you need and what's gonna be the best bang for your buck.
All right, so when it comes to the height of your vehicle, that's also very important.
You can see me? Well, hold on, wait, back up. He can see me. No, I'm sitting here like this.
Because Marissa is 6 foot.
I am not 6 foot.
Marissa's 5'9".
I'm 5'9".
Very tall woman. We call her Big Red.
Wait, what do you call me, huh?
Call him Big Red. No, Marissa's she's 5'9". And this truck obviously is much taller than her, right? And so if you're looking at parking garages or at home garages, that's a very good thing and important thing to consider. Do I live in a city? Do I live in a house that has a garage? Will this actually fit in these spots? Or will I have to do some modifications, like take that annoying tail fin off to get this in my garage?
Height is definitely a big thing to consider. Like Pete said, in parking garages, in your own garages, there's only so many inches for the truck to fit under. Another big thing to consider is who do you have getting in and out of the truck? Me, I have a 3-year-old. I know that he's got little legs, so getting into these bigger vehicles is a little bit more difficult for him. He absolutely loves climbing up in them, but it's not practical for him. So a leveling kit or like a 3.5-inch kit is better for my situation just because I have a little one that gets in and out, still in a car seat, so I still have to pick him up, get him in. So I also have to think about those things whenever I'm taking my family in the truck or anything like that too. Some other things that you also want to consider is obviously how wide of a wheel you go with. Like Pete said, if you live in the city, smaller roads and stuff like that, you also want to consider that too. Another important thing to reconsider or to consider is if you are doing the top dog 6-inch or 4-inch, 6-inch, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up, if you are passing that 4-inch mark, you are cutting the cross members, you are cutting a lot of the factory frame, so you can't go back down once you go up to that full suspension, full 4-inch suspension is what I'm trying to say. If you go to that 4-inch mark, you cannot go back down unless you want to spend just as much money as building it as putting it back to stock when you have to replace all the factory frame pieces and a lot of the other pieces that we have to cut in order to install that suspension kit. So also things to consider is your height, width, how big of a wheel and tire package you want to go with, how much you're looking at spending, as well as is it going to fit, is it going to be practical for what you're using the truck for. The next thing to consider is ride quality as well as maintenance. So when you are lifting your vehicle, if you're just putting a suspension or a leveling kit on and a 3.5, a 4, a 6, your ride quality is going to be a lot different when you are going from a stock vehicle, obviously, to a lifted one, just because you're literally lifting your vehicle 6 more inches. If you're going to smaller kits, that kind of replace just small items. So a leveling kit just kind of replaces your factory strut. If you're going to a 3.5, it replaces the factory strut as well as your control arm. So you're not going to see much of a difference with ride quality. It's going to give you a little bit of a bouncier ride, but not that bad. But it's not going to drive like a stock unit. Another thing to consider when you are doing a build for your ride quality is your wheels and tires. This right here is what's going to give you the best ride quality, especially your tires. If you're going with that beefier mud tire, you're going to get a rougher ride. You're going to get a louder noise just because of the tire tread. So that's why we have different options like hybrid tires and all-terrain tires to essentially get rid of that issue. So that way you have the smoothest possible ride when you are lifting.
Along with getting lift kits or level kits, they can get real crazy. You can replace the shocks, the struts. When it comes down to that, do remember that to keep up with your maintenance on these things. When it comes down to replacing your shocks should be replaced. So when it comes down to it, 5-6 years, or even when you yourself recognize my ride quality is getting a little bit like it feels like it has a spacer kit in it, right? Replace those shocks, it'll go back to almost what it was when you just lifted it, if not just as it was. And then keep all this stuff clean. You're spending $8 grand on a truck, you don't want these parts to rust out. Keep your stuff clean. If you go mud in your stuff, that's what this stuff is made for. Keep your wheels clean. Obviously, there's gonna be more cleaning involved in like a wheel like this than something that has, you know, a 5-spoke. Keep your stuff clean, keep it maintained. You don't have to replace those parts as often or they rust out or anything like that.
Yeah, you are adding a little bit more stress to the vehicle and the factory components when you are lifting the vehicle. So a lot of the things are going to wear a lot quicker than what factory is. So you definitely want to make sure you're keeping an eye on certain things. If you're getting oil changes every 3, 5, 7 months, you want to keep that in the back of your head that you have a lifted vehicle, and then your dealer or your service advisor, anybody that you're taking the vehicle to at a garage should know it's lifted and know what areas to look for. If you do have a lifted vehicle, we do recommend taking the vehicle to an off-road shop. Most off-road shops offer services. I know here at Krietz, we offer a ton of different services with lifted vehicles and stock vehicles. So when a lifted vehicle does come through our bays, we know what to look for specifically. If there's any major wear issues, you are made aware of it, just so obviously you want to keep it maintained. You're not having to spend a crap ton amount of money. From the first initial build, you know, those builds can be anywhere from $2,000 all the way to like $14,500. You don't want to spend that initial money again to replace the suspension. Just keep your eye on it. That way it keeps your costs low, but you can have the longevity of it as well.
Absolutely. And one more thing, if you are to ever need new tires, this is big. Go to somebody that has a road force balance.
Yes.
Because when it comes to off-roading tires, if you do not go to somebody that has
Rewind.
road force balance, it will be much more difficult for them to put 35s on a 22-inch wheel. That is not something that regular cars have or trucks have. And also, road force balances aren't gonna mess up your rim. So when it comes down to it, they are a touchless mountain balance, and so it won't actually affect or scratch up your rim, unlike a lot of different shops which are not touchless.
So how much lift do you really need? Let's go over our recommendations. In my opinion, I see a lot of people and I relate to people when they come in, we ask them what they use the truck specifically. I have a family, I have a husband, I have a kid. The practical lift size for me would be anywhere from a leveling kit to a 3.5-inch kit. I like the looks of 3.5-inch kits. You can get a really good look out of them. You still get a beefier stance. You're still upgrading the suspension. You're also getting the larger wheel and tire package. It's just perfect for me just because I have a kid getting in and out of it. I mean, I have parents, my grandparents, they all want to ride in my vehicles anyways. So they get in there too. So I have to think about that. I love the look of a 3.5-inch build with 20x10s and 33s. That's just my opinion. I think that's what's recommended for most people because it's not going to break your bank and you're still getting the look you want without having to spend anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000.
I completely agree with that statement. I have a level kit on my truck, but I will say, if you want to actually have people want to ride in your vehicle, then you want something like a 6-inch. You want something like a 6-inch. So when, say you are somebody that is capable of getting in and out of a vehicle, we know 6-inch kits are going to make you different than everybody else on the road. When you're driving down, you recognize this is a massive truck that is pulling up right beside me. That's where it's like, you're driving up next to a school bus. I don't remember if you guys remember this, but I do. Marissa's like 40. So when it comes down
Bro,
to
you are coming at me today. I'm not even close to 40. You're never gonna see Pete in videos again, sorry.
I was in a school bus, I'd see a massive truck pull up next to our school bus. I'd be like, that's a massive truck if it's up here with a school bus. That's what you're getting when you see a 6-inch lift. But at the same point in time, these have the most options, I would say, other than, I mean, a show truck, you really want big wheels on them, big wheels and tires. But when it comes down to this, you have a lot of different options. For kits, wheels, tires, you can really go sporadic with it. When it comes down to leveling kits, I love that as well. I have a Bubba build, which is what they call it down south, but it's just it's a level kit and massive tires, which is a really cool look too. It's just not gonna be as badass as that.
Don't get me wrong, I love the look of all the trucks that we build here. I get to drive them home pretty frequently. So I love the looks of the 6-inch builds, but they're not practical for what I use them for and what my family is. Pete doesn't have kids. He's out here single, so ladies, if you're looking, Pete's on the market. So he likes the look of the bigger builds. He can ride around in them, whatever he does after work. What do you do after work?
I have no life.
Okay, never mind. So he has no life, ladies. I mean, hit him up, okay? So that's our recommendation. So things to keep in mind is what wheel and tire size you want to go with, how much you're looking at building it, think of the ride quality and the maintenance you have to put in the vehicle, and then obviously our recommendations mean nothing because it's ultimately what you want. If you want more information, hit us up at 301-694-4642, or you can check out our new website at KreitzCustoms.com. Search our gallery, all the builds that we do, as well as the parts that we offer. See ya!